Hi everyone, my name is Colleen Botwin, and today I'll be taking you through the topic of bullying. I'll be going through the definition, providing some examples, some ways to identify it in schools, prevention strategies, and also take you through the existing New Jersey state laws and policies regarding bullying and ways to report instances of bullying in schools. So let's get started. So, what is bullying? Bullying is unwanted aggressive behavior, observed or perceived power imbalance, and repetition of behaviors or a high likelihood of repetition. And there are different types of bullying that exist. There's two modes of bullying: direct, and that's usually involving a group of people or two people, and that's when it's directly targeted at another person, the bullying behaviors. And indirect, which can be a little more difficult to identify, that occurs when somebody's indirectly either talking about another person, spreading rumors, and trying to harm another person's reputation. And there are four types of bullying: physical, verbal, social slash relational, which is again to intentionally harm a person's reputation, and damage to property. Cyberbullying, which I'm sure everyone is very familiar with, also is a form of bullying that occurs through the use of technology, so either through social media, phones, and text messages, the internet, chat rooms, emails, etc. That can be verbal or relational aggression, and again, that when someone talks about another person, spreads rumors, sends threatening or harmful messages, and damage to property can also occur, and this is essentially hacking in a sense. It's when a person can access another person's privately stored data and intentionally try to destroy or modify it. So that's something just to keep in mind also when discussing cyberbullying. There are different roles involved when discussing bullying, and I'm sure everyone is fairly familiar with them, discussing a bully and a victim, but it is discouraged from labeling a student a bully or a victim. And that's to avoid unintentional consequences later in the future for those students, because they'll always be known as the bully or the victim. So we really want to try to avoid associating them with a label. So instead, the following terms should be used. When discussing a bully, you should refer to the child as the child who bullied. Instead of trying to call a child a victim, you refer to them as the child who was bullied. And finally, when discussing a bully victim, that's when a child is both bullied and bullies others. You should refer to them as the child who was both bullied and bullied others. So these are just terms definitely to keep in mind when either writing reports or discussing bullying situations with parents or staff or even students themselves. A lot of people have trouble identifying bullying situations and they aren't sure if it's a conflict or if it's bullying. So there's certain things you have to kind of keep in mind when trying to identify bullying. And that's being mean or rude versus bullying. So when somebody is mean, they're purposely saying something to hurt somebody else. And it usually only occurs once or twice. So for example, if somebody has a picture and they say, "Oh, you look really ugly in it," that's just being mean. If that only occurs once and it's just that one comment, that's somebody being mean. Being rude is when someone inadvertently says or does something that harms or hurts somebody else. That's when somebody makes an off comment, not realizing that it was offensive to the other person, and they're being rude. And again, it only occurs once, maybe twice. Bullying, there's three elements that differentiate bullying from being mean and rude, and those are the intent to cause harm, a power imbalance, and it's repeated acts of harassment or threatening behavior. And that's something to really keep in mind. It's a repeated act, and it occurs either daily or weekly. It's not just a once or twice incident; it's one and done. So those again are the three different criteria involved when trying to figure out if something is considered bullying. A few different examples of bullying: verbal bullying, which is saying or writing mean things. That's teasing, name calling, inappropriate comments, taunting another person, and threatening to cause harm. Social bullying, which is hurting somebody's reputation or relationship. Some examples include leaving somebody out on purpose, telling other children not to be friends with another person, spreading rumors about another person, and embarrassing somebody in public. And finally, physical bullying, which is hurting a person's body or possessions. That can include kicking or punching another person, spitting, tripping or pushing them, taking somebody's possessions and breaking them, and being mean or making rude hand gestures towards another person. So some statistics when discussing bullying, these are nationwide. 28% of U.S. students in grades 6 to 12 have experienced bullying, and in grades 9 to 12, 20% of students have experienced bullying. And approximately 30% of young people admit to bullying others in surveys. So that's a pretty significant number when looking at the nation overall. And about 70.6% of young people say they've seen bullying occur in schools. And that's a really high number. So that's certainly very eye-opening to read. And another important statistic, when bystanders intervene in bullying situations, bullying stops within 10 seconds 57% of the time. So that's a really important message to send across to students, that you can help stop bullying situations in a really quick manner, just by stepping in and speaking up. And 9% of students in grades 6 to 12 have experienced cyberbullying. So those are just some stats just to, again, keep in mind, and are pretty impactful when reading through them. This slide just sort of shows an overall statistics nationwide of bullying, and how 1 of 4 students will be abused by another youth, and 77% of students are bullied mentally, verbally, and physically. And cyberbullying statistics are rapidly approaching similar numbers. So this just kind of gives an overall view of some of the stats occurring in the nation. It was just a really good graphic. So what to do when you witness bullying? There are anonymous online reporting systems that are available. Majority of the school websites have these right on their homepage, and I believe most have the little Stop Bullying Now icon. You click on that, and anybody who's witnessed a bullying incident can report it through this online system anonymously. There's usually a chance to provide your name if you like, email, and then you describe the bullying situation. Who was doing the bullying, the school it occurred, where it occurred, and just sort of provide all the pertinent information that is available to you. And the anti-bullying specialist will usually begin opening an investigation within a day of receiving this, and try to figure out exactly what happened. There are some immediate actions that you can take if you witness bullying occurring. There's sort of do's and don'ts that are involved in it. You should intervene immediately and get additional help if it's available and if it's necessary, and separate the students involved in the bullying situation, and just ensure everyone is safe. You should definitely seek immediate medical or mental health attention if it's necessary. Stay calm and model appropriate behavior when intervening. So if, as a staff member, you start getting anxious and nervous about the situation, the students will feed off of that. So it's really important to remain calm and sort of reflect the behaviors that you want the students to have in that moment. And then for the students witnessing the bullying, certainly offer guidance to them if they need to go speak to the counselor or the principal or anybody else. Allow them that opportunity to do so. Things you should not do. Definitely do not ignore it. If you see bullying happening, certainly intervene right then and there. Do not force the kids to discuss the incident on the spot. The last thing you want to do is try to mediate it right then and there. The students need to be separated and discuss the incident, what happened, separately. Never question kids in front of their peers about what happened. And again, do not talk to the kids involved altogether. Have separate meetings to try to figure out and piece together what exactly occurred. And finally, do not force the kids to apologize to one another on the spot. Get immediate medical assistance or police help if the following occurs: if a weapon is involved, if there's serious physical harm done to a child, sexual abuse is involved, if there are hate-motivated violent threats, such as racial threats, homophobic threats, police should certainly be notified. And finally, if any illegal actions have been taken place, if somebody steals something or there's extortion involved, again, the police should be notified. There are different bullying preventions Tips that can be used in schools for teachers and staff. There's quite a few here, so just going to touch upon a couple of them, and I'll have this available in the handout for you as well. Um, Teachers and staff should definitely discuss all of the rules and the consequences of bullying with students. Education is key when discussing bullying, so letting students know what bullying is and the consequences that can happen when you do bully another person are really important in helping prevent it from occurring. Again, always model and respect and kindness towards students, because if you're exhibiting the behaviors that you want the students to have, that'll definitely help with the overall school climate and making it a more positive atmosphere for everybody. Establish yourself as an authoritative figure in ensuring a safe and positive school environment for students. So if students know that you're in charge and you're somebody they can come to, that's a really important role for you to fill. Use positive reinforcement. So when students are exhibiting behaviors that are positive and they're not showing signs of bullying, that's something you definitely want to reward students for and acknowledge it. Definitely listen to parents and students who report bullying incidents. Never be dismissive or say, oh, I'm not sure if that happened. Certainly look into every single case that comes your way. Whether or not a full investigation needs to be done, that will be up to the discretion of the principal and or the bullying specialist, but they at least need to be heard. And notify parents of students involved in a bullying incident right away. Communication is imperative. Have open discussions about bullying in the classroom and let students know about the different ways to report it. As I mentioned before, there's the online reporting system that most schools have that students can anonymously go and report a bullying incident. So making them aware of that is really important. Or if they can go talk to the counselor or the SAC, there's resources in the school that they can go discuss bullying incidences with. Role playing is also really important. It gives students an opportunity to show how they would react in the situation where bullying was occurring. If they're a bystander, it kind of gives them the confidence in order to step in. So role playing can be a really positive prevention strategy to use. School counselors can come in and also do that with students, and they can provide classroom lessons on anti-bullying techniques and socio-emotional skills. Work with administrators to help build a positive school climate. This is something that should be done throughout the school year, and trying to figure out ways to overall make the school a safe and positive environment for all the students. And protect students who are bullied with a safety plan. Again, letting them know of the people they can go talk to if they are experiencing bullying, and always validate their feelings too. There are school rules involved in bullying, and again, every district will be different, so that's something to keep in mind. But for the most part, I'm sure they're fairly similar. School rules should involve rules that are consistent with state laws and school district rules and policies. They should also revolve around the school's mission statement, and that should, involve creating a safe environment for students, an opportunity for them to learn. So the bullying rules should basically adhere to that. A collaborative effort among staff, students, and parents when establishing rules. So allowing students to help create anti-bullying rules is really important because it allows them to be fully involved in the process and have them understand it better too. And finally, have a reporting system that anyone can use, similar to the one I showed earlier. Bullying in New Jersey. New Jersey is one of the leading states with the strictest anti-bullying laws. There is the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, and that's signed into law to strengthen the standards and procedures for preventing, reporting, and investigating and responding to incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying of students that occur on school grounds and off school grounds under specified circumstances. So under this is when the whole HIB investigation is discussed. And HIB, again, is harassment, intimidation, or bullying. And there are different policies that are implemented by each Board of Ed when discussing HIBs. So each district must have a procedure in place when a HIB is reported, and an investigation must take place within one school day of the reported incident. In some districts, the Board of Ed leaves it up to the discretion of the principal when determining whether or not to investigate a case, but it all depends on the allegations and whether or not they meet the threshold of a HIB. And finally, if HIB incidents are not addressed and investigated in the timely manner, they are referred to the anti-bullying specialist for further investigation. The criteria for a HIB, there are 3 different criteria that a HIB has to have in order for it to be considered one. It's any reasonable perception of a HIB being motivated either by an actual or perceived characteristic, and substantial disruption or interference with the orderly operation of the school or rights of other students. And finally, one of the 3. A reasonable person should know under circumstances they will have what they say will have an effect on another person and they'll intentionally causing harm to them. Second is having the effect of insulting or demeaning any student or group of students and creating a hostile environment. And finally, a student's education is severely disrupted or harmed due to this other student, causing emotional and physical harm to them. And I have some references and resources where I got a lot of this information from. So those are really going to help, again, when trying to determine whether something is a HIB or a bullying. Stopbullying.gov was one that I found extremely helpful. It was very well organized and provided a lot of the information that I had here in my presentation. So that's something I would highly recommend checking out. But hopefully this gave you a good overview of what bullying is, how to report in schools, some ways to prevent it, and just an overall general sense of how it can happen. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the discussion board, and I will be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.